Presented by Kamuk Ukulele Magazine, this is Ukulele Stories. Will Grove White.
Hello, Cameron. Lovely to see you. It feels like we're in the same room.
It does, although I'm in Sydney, Australia, and you're in London, England, so a bit far from each other. How is it over there today?
It's fine. I'm sipping my morning cup of coffee, and you're probably having a late night nightcap, I imagine.
Well, I would. I mean, I love a cognac. I probably should have brought one. I've got a glass of water. Being far too professional.
Put your velvet smoking jacket on.
Well, I'm actually kind of known for wearing sort of jackets like that when I'm playing, but I'm not right now.
Very good. Anyway. Yeah, well,
but no one can see this, so let's just say I am sitting in a plush armchair in a velvet smoking jacket.
Yeah, and I'm just relaxing by my swimming pool.
Exactly. That famous London summer.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, well, we've got a lot to talk about. We were just talking off air about how we have kind of parallels in our ukulele stories. So how did you get into playing the ukulele is my first question.
Well, similar to you, weirdly, I saw George Formby when I was a young boy. I mean, I think that was the beginning of it, was just watching George Formby films and just being quite excited by his fast strumming, being a sort of excitable young boy. And I asked my mother if for a birthday, she could buy me a ukulele, thinking that, because I thought that was a ukulele, a banjo uke, yeah? And she bought me just a regular uke, which I stared at and thought, well, this isn't a ukulele. And I kind of put it in the corner of my room for a year or two. And then my mother was a journalist. Well, she's old now, but she was a journalist, and in the 60s did some rock columnist writing, and met and made friends with a guy called Ian Whitcomb, who is he had a couple of number one hits, I think, or maybe one number one hit in America with a song called You Turn Me On. But his big thing was English music hall songs, weirdly. So he kind of rode into the 60s, music scene, but actually his obsession was 1920s and 30s music. And he's lived in Los Angeles and was a total authority on all that stuff. And he played loads and loads of gigs and wrote loads and loads of books and loads of music. And my mum took me to see him do a little gig in Soho. I think I must have been about 12 or something. And he was just playing a ukulele with a piano and a bass, I think, and singing old songs. But he was playing the one that she'd bought me, one of those little, like a tiny guitar, the one we know and love. So then I really just thought, wow, I got to go back and learn that. And then I found that about a week later, I could play a few songs, That was really it. I had the bug at that point, and I just got my head right down and played and played and played and played. But really not a lot of my friends were into the same music. Although I liked, the older I got, I liked rock and roll music and pop music and Madonna and Michael Jackson, all those sort of things, that we were all into in the 80s. But I also loved old music, and particularly this band called the Temperance Seven, which was a bit like the Bonzo Dog Doodah band, but much cooler and much better, I think, much better arrangements. Obsessively listened to them. And then that's really how I got into the ukulele, into that world, Yeah.
Yeah. Another odd parallel with me there. My step-granddad was a member of the George Formby Society, but at this stage we were living in South Africa. He had a great collection of banjo ukes and played in a kind of similar style. But I never got one of those. Either my dad actually got me a little Japanese soprano, and I put it in the corner of my bedroom for about a year until I started actually thinking about properly playing it and asking how to actually play this thing. Did you actually ever get a banjo uke, or did you just never?
Well, I did
in
the end. Yeah, of course. Of course, you can't help it. But yeah, it's a great sound. I mean, it's a real noise though. And I've never been to a George Formby convention, but I have been to the Ukulele Society of Great Britain, which is a very small organization, but they're great, and they were around at that point, and they run out of a village hall in England called Digswell Village Hall. And the first time I went, there were quite a lot of people playing banjo ukes, doing George Formby stuff, and really impressive strumming, and a really odd world though, because it was like stepping into another era. And old guy, I remember playing a musical saw called Jim Thorogood, and I went, I've got a few musical saws now, of course, But once you get those sort of bugs, yeah, yeah. But I do like the banjo uke, but I do like it with some other instruments.
You should get to a GFS convention one. I've been to one myself, but when you see one of their thrashers with 30 banjo ukes on stage at once, it is quite a noise. It's a great noise, but
Well, I bet it's like no
it's
other.
quite a
I
noise.
mean, I've seen documentaries and recordings of them. I would love to go. I should go.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it's a lot closer to you than me.
It's true. It's true.
All right, so going on to the Ukulele Orchestra of Great Britain, then. So I read that you actually joined them when you were 15 years old. How does that happen? How does a kid join a group such as that?
Well, basically, so I'm this young boy in London, obsessed with the ukulele, also listening to Jimi Hendrix and the Velvet Underground and all this stuff, and keen to play with other people. I read an article. There was an article about the Ukes. The Ukulele Orchestra was already going. They'd started in '85, I think. And there was an article in a newspaper about this ukulele orchestra that played Charlie Parker and Shirley Bassey. And, it was just like, what is this thing? And it was in the top room of a pub. So I went along week after week, really. The minute I saw them, it was just like the coolest. They were all about, I don't know, 10 years, maybe more, 10 or 15 years older than me, but they were like the coolest guys and girls, hilarious. It was a kind of anarchic atmosphere in the top of a pub with I'd say about 12 people, maybe even more, and a kind of bit of a rolling cast, but not that much, some regulars. And I just kept going along. And George took a bit of a shine to me, was encouraging, and I was asking to borrow music, and he gave me a pad. And then I went back and started a little group at school, a three-man ukulele group. I'd convinced a guitar player to play a baritone ukulele.
It should be pointed out that at this point in time, playing the ukulele was a very odd thing to do.
Yeah, this is 1989. Yeah, and it was very hard to find a good ukulele. This was the other thing. But I mean, actually, at that point, because Ian Whitcomb had been so thrilled that I'd started playing the ukulele, and he had this huge collection of old ukuleles. Now, this is a really sacrilegious story, okay?
Brace yourselves.
He gave me a Martin, I think style O. It was one of the really old Martins with pegs. It just like literally a peg of wood that you turned, for the tuners. And it sounded absolutely amazing. He gave me one. He had about 30 of them, and they were 10 a penny in those days. I had my little ukulele group and I was coming back from school on the underground and I'd had a long day at school and it was under my legs and I fell asleep on the tube. And I woke up and it was my stop and I just rushed off the train. The doors closed and I immediately realized the ukulele was still there. And I went everywhere. I got the next train. I chased it up the line. I called, lost property, everything. And someone must have found it and thought, hey, it's a little toy guitar. So it just disappeared. I mean, that's a sad story. Hopefully someone found it and was inspired and formed some other group. But no, I did go and I bought another one for £200.
£200 is quite a lot in those days.
Well, I don't think. Well, maybe it was, but we got some insurance. We got the insurance somehow. I'll
Okay.
bundle it. But no, that was a nice uke. But I mean, the ones you could get in the shops were like the Skylark. Remember the Skylark Chinese ukulele?
No.
Terrible. They were used to in this one shop in London, Ivan Mayrant's, that would sell ukuleles. They used to have about 15 in stock. And maybe one of the 15 had the frets in the right place. So you'd say, I'll take that one. Yeah, but so we started a little group at school, and that was good fun. And we did, Satisfaction, and we played some of Ian Whitcomb's, My Blue Heaven and Manhattan, the Rodgers and Hart tune, some old ones, because he'd given me his music with all the chords written out on the top, and amazing chords. I think was it May Singy Breen, or I think it was who wrote the. Was it her who wrote?
It was who advocated to get all the ukulele tablature on music. Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, the amazing thing about that compared to today is the chords that they chose. They had proper musicians writing the chords. It's not just it's just C all the way. Like you can play Singing in the Rain with just a C and a G7, right? I mean, some of these arrangements on the things, there are millions of other passing chords you can add in, and all sorts of interesting ornamentations. But they're all written. What was great for a young boy like me was just the simplicity of these four strings with the dots. Eventually, some people left the uke, so there was some seats opened up in the ukulele orchestra, and I was hoping beyond hope that I would be asked. And they did. They said, "Come on, might as well. He seems like he knows what he's doing." Was quite a good player. I haven't got much better, but I've
Nor have I, to be
yeah,
honest.
but I'm good at what I do. So I'm not a fancy. I'm not a Jake Shimabukuro or a strummer, good rhythm, solid, and I know what I'm doing, and I love singing. That's the thing I really love. And the ukulele is a kind of vehicle for singing. I think in ukulele workshops and stuff I go to, people love singing. And often there's a few people there who don't really know any of the chords. They just want to sing. But they don't
Yeah.
want to just sing. They want some protection. The ukulele gives them that.
Small protection, but protection
Yeah,
just the same.
enough. Yeah, yeah. It's like some swimming trunks.
When did you all become conscious, kind of, that the uke orchestra was really taking off? Obviously, became and still is a very major group.
Yeah. No, it's going strong. It really took off. The internet had a lot to do with it. I mean, it was a very strange band to be in because we played pubs around London all the time, but we also had a deal with the Japanese, with Sony in Japan, because Japan obviously is a big ukulele scene. And they asked us to go out on tour in Japan in 1994. So I was at university, and luckily the tour came in the holidays, and I just jumped on a plane and off we went for a few weeks to Japan. And it was extraordinary. And there were shops in Japan just with ukuleles. It was like, what is this world we've walked into? And there were people asking us to sign their ukuleles, and we felt like real stars, and these big ukulele stars. There was this guy, Maki Shinji, and Ota-san. They came and played with us at the
Wow.
gigs. And these were kind of these legendary guys in Japan who we really hadn't heard of. This is before the internet, of course. So yeah, so that was exciting. And then we did a load of village hall tours in around Britain, and really that's when the act, around this time, going to Japan and that, and then that's when the act took shape, sort of thing, and we knew what we were doing. And we were always doing these gigs every month in a folk club in London called Cecil Sharp House, where the queues got bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. So that was a kind of a sign. We knew that there was something really good about this band. We fantasized, hey, imagine one day we could play the Albert Hall and we'll all have a good laugh about it. But you kind of thought, I think we, if in the right circumstances, I think we could, because it's a good act. It's funny. It's good music. So it was really when the internet came along and we recorded a DVD. I think but we've all got our story of when it got big. I think it was when the internet came along and we released a DVD, and someone ripped every single track off the DVD, put it all on YouTube. This thing called YouTube, or it was called Google Video, maybe it was Google Video and then YouTube. Anyway, this is in 2003 or something. And then maybe a bit later, and we were like incandescent. They've stolen our material, blah, blah, blah. But then suddenly we started getting people coming to the gig saying, hey, I saw you on YouTube. And we did the Edinburgh Festival. And then we started doing gigs in Germany after that. Guys saw us there. And one thing led to another. And then the internet. And because we were one of the first, I think anyone who was kind of one of the first things on the internet tended to make a mark, because these clips hung around. But yeah, I think that's when it sort of started picking up, and then it just went bananas. It was like just a graph going up and up and up and up and up until we got asked to do the BBC Proms, which is a really prestigious yearly thing at the Royal Albert Hall. But it wasn't just a guest spot; it was our own prom, a whole hour live on Radio 3. And we sold it out. It was one of the fastest selling proms in history, apparently. And we got
Amazing.
about 1,000 or a couple of thousand people along with their ukuleles playing Ode to Joy. So that was a lot of fun.
It is an amazing concert.
Oh, it's lovely. It was great fun. Our knees were knocking a bit, but it was such fun. It was, the minute we got out there, you realize, oh my God, was like a football team stepping out in their home ground. The support was incredible. Yeah, and then not long after that, Carnegie Hall called, and Sydney Opera House, and back to Carnegie Hall, back to the Royal Opera House, Royal Albert Hall. And then we were just thinking, well, crikes, I think we've peaked.
You went up north as well, didn't you? There's a polar trip in there.
That was fantastic. The Polar Jazz Festival. I can't remember what year that was, but that was it was in the darkest time, the last landmass before the North Pole, which the North Pole is just ice, right? So it's owned partly by Norway, partly by Russia, partly by maybe Greenland, and it was pitch black. There was no sun all day, anything. It's so remote. I mean, there's a kind of adventure industry there, but we landed on snow in the airplane. It was minus, I don't know, 25 or something. It was so cold. And the Northern Lights were just streaming all over the place. And we played this gig. Every time you left the house, you had to, or the hotel, which you didn't do very often. If you left what they called the settlements, which is the areas where people are, you had to travel with someone with a gun because there were so many polar bears around. So we did that a couple of times, and it was just the year after a poor Etonian boy had been eaten by a polar bear
Wow.
on a camping trip. Yeah, so it was, you're quite glad for the guy with the gun, really. But that was great, yeah, to a load of research scientists and adventure people, and you can imagine they like to enjoy themselves when there's a band there because there's not many bands come up there. It was a pretty wild evening. Yeah, it was funny. Very good.
Brilliant, brilliant. And so you were with the Ukes for just a short time, 31 years.
Just for 31, yeah.
And so were you playing your own music during that period, or were you kind of just committed to the Ukes entirely?
Well, I was I've always been committed to the Ukes, and I still am. I'm not playing with them, but I'm very close contact with them, and hope it just goes and goes and goes and goes because it's a brilliant act and it deserves to be seen by millions of people. I just got exhausted. It was a lot of work, a lot of traveling. After that long, it was just, I always wanted to try a couple of other things, so that's what I decided to do. I always thought maybe I could write my own music. And I thought I think, I can't remember, 2006 or something, I just thought I'm going to try and write an album. And I got the software and I started writing stuff. It's kind of quirky stuff, it's ukuleles, musical saws, tubas, clarinets, with a sort of 1920s edge, a bit of ska, a bit of sort of funky stuff, different musical bits, but all through the ukulele and odd instrument vehicle. I think that's one thing I really learned from the Ukes is to be serious about music, even if you're playing a stupid instrument. I mean, not a stupid instrument, but you know what I mean? An unconventional instrument. So if you play James Brown horn lines really brilliantly on a nose flute or a kazoo, but you've got to play them really, really well, You can't play that. It's got to be perfectly in tune and really on the thing. It's going to sound brilliant, but weird, So that was sort of my idea, not to just go, this is all funny and silly, and it's just going to be funny and silly because it's funny and silly. With the ukulele orchestra, the more seriously we took it, the more everyone laughed, the more brilliant it was, because if we really took it seriously, the music got better and better. And also it looked funnier because we would be really focused on this thing. People would say after the gigs, how do you keep a straight face? And you'd think, well, that's because I'm,
Because I'm serious.
you know what I mean? So yeah, no, but yes, so I started writing music and then released an album to a sort of not much of a fanfare. But, that was very nice. And I'm very proud of that. But I managed to sell it to Universal as library music, production music. So it gets used in TV and stuff. And since then, I've developed a good relationship with them.
Sort of not unknown, but a lesser known income stream for musicians, production music and sync placement, as they call it in America, isn't it?
I wish I'd known about it earlier because when your stuff does get used, it's just not millions, but I mean, it just makes a difference, so you get royalties.
Do you have a sort of musical theory background then?
No, not at all. No, I can't read music. Well, I can read music. I can read very, very slowly, one finger at a time, in C, hopefully. That would be best.
Ideally.
Yeah, I know the crotchets and quavers and the rest of it. You've just from learning piano when I was a kid. But I mean, I learned for a couple of years a few boogie woogie tunes and a couple of tunes I'm never going to play again, But I sort of got the idea, and I learned about bars and beats and things like that. The way I wrote stuff, and still do actually, is I sit down with my uke, I think of a tune and some chords, and I record those. And then I put some stuff in between the tune, whatever it is. You just try and hear what's coming, and then I can sing it all into the machine, and then I can give it or show it to people who actually can play the notes. So I want this bit on clarinets, I want this bit on a tuba, I want this bit on a piano or whatever, or I want this feel for the drums or something. It's so great to get good players to play. That's the key, I'd say.
Absolutely. I put out my debut album just about 1 year ago.
Hey,
And,
congratulations.
well, thank you. It's called
I
Mixed
assume it's
Business.
got some ukuleles on it, right?
It does. It's ukulele forward. It's sort of just six tracks,
Oh,
all
great.
originals. But I
Fantastic.
recorded it at there's a country star in Australia called Casey Chambers. So I recorded it at her kind of home studio. Well, it's a proper studio, but it's on her property. Just for the first real time, I played with absolute pros, her drummer and her guitarist. He sort of doubles as the producer. And yeah, as you say, working with people who really know what they're doing musically is just a revelation. It really is.
Yeah. Well, what's great is it's so easy and so fun for them. But if you've written some songs, that's often the thing that people who are great at playing music don't have the confidence to do. I mean, weirdly, they often do, but are very happy to play on other people's stuff as well, And so I just think getting other people in and using people's skills and giving them a platform as well, and you've got to pay everybody properly.
Yes,
Because
definitely.
also, I mean, that's the funny thing I found was people I thought would be out of reach for me to get to play. I thought he'd never want to play on my stuff. But if you can actually just get the oomph inside you to just pick up the phone and say, look, I've got, a few £100. I can come to your house. I can send you the tracks. It'll be really easy. They're like, yeah, of course, I'll make you a sandwich. And, because a lot of people who are really brilliant, they're not busy all the time. And if it's on a plate,
Yeah.
they'll be really happy to help, and happy to do stuff. And this guy, Ben Castle, who played the clarinet on my stuff, when he did a solo, I remember going around, I just had the bass and drums and ukulele recorded. I went round to his house and he started doing some solos. And I just thought, oh man, this is going to work. This is really going to work now. I get it,
Yeah. Well, that's it. I mean, you have to remember, of course, that as good as anybody is, they always just wanted to be musicians. They just want to play, really. And if you give them something
Yeah.
tasty to chew on, they'll do it. They'll enjoy it.
Absolutely. Definitely.
Yeah.
Obviously, I like ukuleles altogether because we were in the Ukulele Orchestra Great Britain. Crucially, we had a bass ukulele, which I think, is just a kind of key. It does just make any ukulele sound better having a bass around. I mean, that's my view. But I love the ukulele in combination with other instruments. All of the great ukulele players, Formby, Ukulele Ike, used big bands with them. There's moments where the band stops and they do some fancy little bit, but then the strings and the bass come in and you can always hear the uke and it's there propping the thing up, giving it character, giving it that amazing character only the ukulele can do. The guitar can't do it. I don't know what else. The piano, blah, blah. The ukulele's got this funny little character and can be quite sad if you want to make it sad as well. Yeah. So, but I just think in combination with other instruments, what a great thing it does.
And now you're in your kind of second chapter of your ukulele story as a ukulele builder. So
That's
I was
right.
actually surprised I was a bit surprised when I saw you pop up on Facebook, as a builder. Which I can't remember when that was, maybe a couple of years ago.
Well, I started a couple of years ago, yeah. But
Yeah.
when the Ukes was getting popular, I at the time was making my money being a cameraman on quite low end reality TV.
That's the best type of reality TV, isn't
Oh my God, yeah, wife swap and that sort of thing. Can you live without your underpants? Or I don't know. I can't
it?
remember what things were called. They were fun, but it was exhausting, and I didn't want to do that forever. But in my spare time, I would make these little automata. So they're like little wooden boxes with some characters on top. You wind a handle and the character moves around, propelled by some cogs and things. And I started selling those, and that was starting to pick up. But that was exactly the time that the uke started really picking up, and that seemed like a much more fun, and actually I could make a living doing this, playing the ukulele. So I wanted to make something, and then I suddenly had the brainwave to make ukuleles, and that's what I've been doing. They're out in the world. My little ukulele ambassadors are going and doing their work for me. People listening on the wireless podcast, you won't be able to see them, but there's a few ukuleles behind me. A long neck soprano, a tenor, a sopranino there. I've got a few on the go here. I've got the one I'm really pleased with is this shape, this peculiar. Can you see?
I can. That's a wonkulele, if I'm not
It's a
mistaken.
wonkulele, so it's the neck is comes off at a very peculiar angle, but it makes it very nice and easy to play, if you can imagine, because the neck's tilted up towards your head. You
Where
don't
did
have
the
to twist.
idea come from for the wonkulele? So everyone must go and Google wonkulele just to see what we're talking about here.
Well, I thought, well, because I'm making them in this way, so the top of the ukulele isn't flat. If you a lot of ukuleles join a flat neck, the neck joins flat to the top of the uke. But because I'm making them by putting the neck inside the body of the uke, it means I can put the neck wherever I want. And I just suddenly one night I thought, God, I could do that. That'd be fun. Why not try that?
I really want to try one.
It looks wrong, but it seems to work.
Well, it reminds me of the great kind of novelty-ish ukes that they used to make in the 20s and 30s, sort of Lyon and Healy and
Yes, yes, yes.
even
Little
Gibson
the
and
the circular ones, and
yeah, Camp
yeah, I'm
uke
very
and
attracted to those. Aaron Kime in America makes a nice camp. I think he calls them a camp ukulele. Were they called the camp
they
ukuleles?
were
A
originally
scout.
called camps, but I mean they could just.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
sure Aaron probably just calls them camp as well. I think it's long out of
yeah,
copyright.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And then I've got this. I'm putting a little surprise in the ukes as well. You see this
Oh
little guy?
wow, tiny figures.
Yeah, just
There's a little
some
man
tiny.
sitting on one of the bracing rods in the ukulele.
A bit of fun. This is the sort of automata. I like all that. I've always loved miniature things.
Yeah.
In fact, the second album I did on my own was all miniature instruments. And that's my next mission, really, is to get that idea on the go, is to get another little band going. Because this is great fun. I'm loving making ukuleles. But I also want to, it's quite solitary, as you can
Mm.
imagine. I'm very happy doing that. But I think that having a little world outside would be great.
Yeah, I was listening to that album today. Actually, it's fantastic. And as we were talking about before,
Well, that's kind.
the seriousness of it. There were times I was actually listening to it while I was at work, and there were times where I didn't think I was listening to a ukulele or an unusual album. It was just really
Oh,
good
right.
music, and then I thought, oh,
Oh,
what
good,
am I
good.
listening to?
Oh, well, I'm glad you say that. That's very gratifying. No, I
Terrific.
mean, I must do some more, really, but I got sidetracked
Well, it's hard to do
in the
everything.
light. It is hard to do everything. You can't do everything.
No.
But I mean, this is the main thing I'm focused on at the moment is just growing this ukulele making thing. And I've been on a huge mission and been, apprenticed with this guy, Pete Howlett, in North Wales, where I went and
He makes some
did
lovely
an
ukes.
internship with him for a few weeks, and he made my ukulele that I played with the Utes, that I played in front of the Queen. Actually, that's another big name drop I haven't done yet. I spent a few weeks with him learning how to make ukes, and other people like Liam Kirby, Wunderkammer Instruments in Bath, and Aaron Kime in America has been really helpful, and Marco Todeschini, whose ukuleles I really recommend you check out if you haven't seen Antica Ukuleleria.
No.
He makes fabulous ukes. I mean, I think the ukulele scene in Britain know him a bit, but he really, and he makes guitars too. But he's a ukulele obsessive, and he's a really charming guy. But he's been super helpful. If I ask him one question, he replies with about 3 pages, which is just what you want.
Yeah, yeah.
But it's fun as well because you get to make things like this is one I'm making at the moment, which it's got 8 frets, right? It's a soprano scale, but
Mm.
on a tenor body. So it's going to be really loud. It's going to be like the loudest soprano. it's but it's just fun being able to go, what ukulele would I like to, what would be good in a band? Like thinking, what were the ukuleles we could have had in the ukulele orchestra that we couldn't get, because it was quite an interesting thing when you've got 8 ukuleles all together. You kind of want a range of tones if possible. If you just have the bass and 7 sopranos, you're missing a whole load of notes. So you need at least one baritone. Then you need, I mean, ideally, you want other tunings. So we had a couple of ukuleles tuned to the old English tuning, what they call A, D, F sharp, B.
The Formby tuning.
Yeah. Well, although
Kind of.
didn't he have,
He had both. Yeah.
didn't he? I thought he had like a different ukulele for each song, so
Well,
he
he
didn't. He
did.
could
Yeah.
just play
Yeah.
the same chord shapes.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's fantastic,
People would
isn't it?
just hand him a different uke. Yeah. That's the one way to
Yeah,
do it.
that's fantastic. Yeah, yeah. I heard a story. I don't know. I'm going to get in trouble, but it's Coldwater or some great songwriter of that era had a piano. He could play best on the black keys, whatever key that is, where you just play the black keys and a couple of white notes.
Mm.
He had a piano made with a lever on the side that if he wanted to change the key, he could just pull the lever and all the
What?
strings would move up a bit, and he could play the same fingering.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it's like a capo for a piano.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the world's biggest capo. Had you always been into woodwork then? I mean, you obviously made the automata, but had you done anything
Yeah, well, I've
bigger?
always been into making things, but this is a new. I'm learning all about wood, and I've given quite a few away. I've sold a few, and there's a few which haven't gone quite to plan. But I think what have I sold, 7 or 8 now, so
Great.
that's good. And like I say, it's a slow process, but once they're out there and people can play them, I think people really need to get their hands on these things because they sound absolutely fab. In my view.
Definitely. Well, I mean,
They're my kind of ukes.
a tip for anyone buying a uke is to try it first. If you can,
Absolutely,
that
yeah.
is the feel of a uke is paramount, really. You're using a lot of
Absolutely.
interesting woods as well, like alder and oak. Very non-tone wood,
Yeah,
I guess.
I've been using. Yeah,
You,
is a
yeah, right.
great. I mean, they're extraordinary figured patterns,
Beautiful.
on these. And they just sound terrific. And the oak ones, they've flown out the door, so I don't have any oak ones here. But here's one in process, which is that's
Yeah,
brown oak,
looks
and
lovely.
it's at the moment the kind of spruce and cedar tops. That's what you classically use for guitars and stuff because it really is it's a much lighter wood and it seems to project the
Mm.
sound. So using some different hardwoods, if mahogany works, I just thought, well, why wouldn't oak work? I mean,
Yeah, both hardwoods.
and
Yeah,
and you can call it an ukulele. When you make a ukulele from you can just call it a ukulele. When you've got a pun built in, it's just something that's
so
got to be
the
done.
marketing writes itself.
Exactly. Yeah.
Did you ever, when you were, pre ukes, have any plans to become anything other than a globe-trotting ukulele playing ukulele maker?
Well, I was going to become, because no one makes money out of music, I thought, and certainly not out of ukuleles. So I just thought this is going to be a great hobby, and this is the band that I would pay to be in. I'm in the ukulele orchestra. That's enough. I just love being in this band, and I love doing the gigs. I love the people. What more could I want, really? But what my work was going to be as a cameraman, really, as a director, cameraman, doing TV stuff, high-end documentaries, I thought. But after I did my MA in visual anthropology and made a great film about people with mental health difficulties in a house in North Wales, the only jobs I could get afterwards were reality TV shows about sort of clubbers going to Ibiza and stuff.
That was also just the product of the time, really, wasn't it?
Yeah, but that was all that was on offer, So my sort of high concept ideas for documentaries about ukuleles didn't get very far. I did make a fun documentary. I made a little film about the ukes. It's on YouTube. It's called the Ukulele Orchestra Go Japan, and it's a half-hour film about our 2004 tour of Japan. I think Maki Shinji's in that one.
Have you seen Rock That Uke?
No, I haven't. I must see it. Yeah.
You must. I've had Bill on this podcast,
Oh,
the
fantastic.
director
Yeah.
and writer, and it's still my favorite. It's really about the punk rock aspect of it.
Well, there's some great ukulele stories because I also wrote a ukulele book, So that was a company approached me to write a how-to and a history and some funny stories and things like that. And it's a great book. I mean, I'd say it's a great book. It looks great. It's got some great pictures. And we did loads of research to track down all these funny old pictures and old stories. And I talked to Pete Townsend. I talked to Joe Brown, various great characters. It just was a great excuse to call some people.
So are they talking about ukuleles in the book?
Yes. Well, Pete Townsend didn't have many great stories to tell about the ukulele, but he claimed to have, as a child on holiday, watched George Formby from backstage at a theatre, like an end of the pier type theatre, where he used to go all the time and they would let the kids run around backstage.
That sounds like a great story.
Yeah, so he told me that him and a cheeky friend had thought that George Formby was kind of irritating and had brought the curtain down in front of him and then run off to teach him a lesson or something. But he famously used the ukulele in a famous Who song. I can't remember what it was. But yeah, no, I mean, a lot of those old rockers, the rock stories of ukuleles, Brian May, obviously, Jimi Hendrix started on the ukulele. You know that?
Yeah, Paul McCartney.
Yeah, Paul McCartney. Joni Mitchell, of course. And David Byrne from Talking Heads. He used to be in a little ukulele duo, with a bass player and a ukulele. And Joe Strummer from The Clash. Joe Strummer from The Clash used to busk on the London Underground with Chuck Berry songs before he started The Clash. So it can lead to wonderful things, the ukulele, or you can just stick with it forever and ever and ever, like you and I.
Well, I don't see any problem with that, and I don't think any of our listeners do either. And I think we've come sort of full circle here with, going back to George Formby. So thank you very much for your time.
Not at all, Cameron. All the best.
All right, well, take it easy and have a good day and, happy building.
I will, yeah. I've got some necks to sort out, some frets to polish. I'll be busy. You take care, Cameron.
You too. Take it easy. Thanks for listening. Please subscribe to Ukulele Stories on your preferred podcast app. To take us out, here's Will Grove White and the others with Tiny Blues.
If we could live in a miniature village, we could live such a tiny little life. We'd live in a miniature house on a miniature street, snug as bugs. You could be my microscopic wife. No, I don't want the big time. I don't want to stand tall. I just want a tiny little life, that's all. No, I don't want the big time. I don't wanna stand tall. I just want a tiny little life, that's all. I don't need an upgrade, and I have no desire to supersize. Did you never hear that small is beautiful? you, you're my tiny little prize. No, I don't want the big time, I don't wanna stand tall, I just want a tiny little life, that's all. No, I don't want the big time, I don't wanna stand tall, I just want a tiny little